Hello, everybody. We are having some technical difficulties today, so we've been trying to go ahead and play around with some things a little bit. Who knew that trying to integrate with YouTube was going to be so difficult? So I'm going to go ahead and give this just a few minutes for people to make the transition over. I did do a quick post on the Facebook page that we're swapping over to Facebook just for today. I had wanted to switch this over to, hi Lindsay, I wanted to switch this over to YouTube so that we could have people who don't have Facebook accounts have the ability to, go ahead and take part in this as well. But the problem is that I was having some technical issues and I'm going to have to do a little bit of work on that. So since I know how to do Facebook and I'm able to go ahead and do that while we're working and I can make this work, that will be a lot better for us. So we'll do this one this time on Facebook. I'll try to get my issues sorted out for our next event and get those sorted out so that where we can use all of the folks over at YouTube, or I'll get some help with the YouTube link for this and figure out how it works. But the thing that we're going to start off with today, many of you saw the last time that we did this, the way we used sketches to go ahead and move on to full layouts with those. And as part of National Scrapbook Day, I reached out to the folks over at the Dusty Addict, who are wonderful people. If you've never had any products from Dusty Addict before, you've definitely got to check them out. They are products that are mostly chipboard, their titles, their shapes, they're all kinds of wonderful things. One of the programs that they have done through Dusty Addict is they have created a very awesome set of sketches. So Jennifer Hedger, one of the owners of the owner of the Dusty Attic, has posted on their Facebook page some amazing sketches, and she's gone through, I think last year she did one sketch per week for all 52 weeks. She started again this year, and when I reached out to her about my idea for doing a live event for a kind of National Scrapbook Weekend, she was so gracious in allowing us she said, go ahead and use those sketches, and then we'll use these to create our layouts. What I'm going to do is show you the line that I am working with first. So I decided that since it's National Scrapbook Weekend or National Scrapbook Day, that the line that I wanted to work with was called Hey Crafty Girl. I know a lot of you have seen this line before. It's been out for a little while. It's a gorgeous line from Simple Stories. I will show you the items that I'm going to be using. So for this, I know when we created the list of items to bring to create this, to follow this series, I told you to do about 12 pieces of patterned paper, 6 pieces or so of cardstock, and or like a solid coordinating paper. And the best way that you can accomplish that is with a collection pack and with the Simple Basics from Hey Crafty Girl. Now I added in some cardstock as well. So we're gonna do some layouts using these packs. And then in addition to that, it's fun to have lots of embellishments. So with those papers, come in the collection pack, you get the super cute 12 by 12 sticker that we'll be using to add embellishment to our layouts. So that's what this sticker looks like. We've got that 12 by 12 sticker. And then in addition to that, sorry, I got a little frazzled by my technical issue and lost a few minutes in trying to get some things prepped and ready to go. So in addition to that, I'm going to be using the Bits and Pieces pack from Hey Crafty Girl. That includes all of the fun little words and shapes and that kind of a thing. And then I'll be using the journal Bits and Pieces, and we'll also use the chipboard. So the great news is I'm also going to be immediately after this live, I'm going to be creating a bundle. And one of our last bundles for National Scrapbook Weekend, or International Scrapbook Weekend, as we could call it, one of the last bundles I'll be posting on my website with special pricing is going to be this bundle that we're going to be using for this series. So it will be the collection kit, the simple basics, the chipboard, the journal bits and pieces, and the bits and pieces. So you'll want to look for that if you want to decide that you would like to recreate these layouts that I'm doing here. In addition to that, I'll be posting for you the layout sketches that we use from the folks over at Dusty Attic, and I'll post for you on those sketches the dimensions that were cut. So mine, I'm going to adjust a little bit, but I will put the dimensions on the sketches that I cut the paper to make it work for the layouts that I'm doing. So the first one that we're going to do, throughout this series, we're going to create a total of 2 one-page layouts and 4 two-page layouts. So this will be the first class in this series, and then we'll keep moving on. So our first one, we're going to use this one here. This Dusty Attic sketch it just happens to be from week 6 of this year. As you can see, you can make these as multi-layered and multifaceted as you want to, or you can make them as simple as you want to. So what I'm going to show you is my process of looking at a sketch, and then also how I kind of eyeball things, and then how I cut things and put them together. And I'm going to show you what I've done as we're going along. So if you have your pattern paper with you and you want to go ahead and make these cuts as we go along, I'll show you how I did that. So we're going to start off with this one right here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I chose to use a solid colored cardstock as the background of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these pieces because I'm going to show you how we built those, and then we're also going to finish this page out. But I wanted to give you an idea kind of what that skeleton looks like before we kind of wreck it and start all over. So the first thing that I did was just choose a coordinating background paper. In this case, I did a solid because with this one page, I'm going to be putting a lot of other patterns on there. And so sometimes, hi Laura, I miss you too. So sometimes what we're going to do is we're going to use a solid because when we're using a ton of pattern and we have all those patterns interplaying with each other, it's nice to kind of ground them. So sometimes a solid background, and whether that is for you a solid or something like these, patterned where they're the dot on one side, because this would also make a wonderful base for this page as well, kind of a tone on tone. So you could use one of those as your background. This is another one of the papers in that line that is this beautiful green grid background. So that would be great as well. Something though that's not going to be too busy, that as we start to layer patterns on here, we find that they don't compete too much. So the first paper that I used in this collection was a paper that has kind of a lot going on. And a lot of times people tell me I have the hardest time with these papers, that it seems like they're built to be a paper that you would use the whole paper as a base or something like that. Now, so here's the paper that I started with. Now, there is no rules against using this as your entire base for a page and then building things on that. And we have done that in some of our layouts and our kind of how-tos in the past. And probably later on in the series, there's another paper in this pack that I'll do that with, and I'll show you kind of how to use that as one side of your layout, and how to then incorporate that the other side doesn't always have to match. And I think a lot of people end up feeling like, if you're doing bases, that the papers on both sides have to match, or they have to be the same, or something like that. And so a lot of times people are intimidated by these kinds of papers if they don't do one-page layouts. Sometimes if they do two-page layouts, they say, I don't really know how I would use that with something next to it. So we'll kind of show later on in the series how we do this with a two-page layout. But for this one, I decided that I was only going to use the bottom of this one. And so I'm going to use, with this sketch, if we kind of refer back to our sketch again, we can see that on the bottom, we have our base page here. And on the bottom, we have a strip that goes across it. Now, you can certainly cut this to what looks like probably, and I having cut things a bajillion times, I can usually eyeball based on, you know, edges that I see and that kind of a thing. This is probably 11 long by more than likely 4. So you can cut yours that way if you'd like to. What I decided to do on this one is to change it up just a little bit. Now this pattern goes edge to edge. So I decided to make this the bottom of my page. There's nothing that says that you have to do that. If you have just a pattern that you're going to use that doesn't go edge to edge, you could cut it narrower if you like the look of it being more framed. The other thing is, if I don't feel so great about having the numbers on the side, and I might change my mind in the middle of this, if I don't feel like I have to absolutely have those numbers on the right side of this grid, I can just trim it off. And nobody's going to know the difference. Nobody's going to know that that was even there to begin with. This might have been ledger paper that only had, you know, numbers on one side. So there's no rules when it comes to these paper. I feel like a lot of people, they get caught up and they can't kind of think outside the box when it comes to pattern papers. So I'm here to encourage you, just do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever you like, the pattern that you like. So in this case, see, now that I just laid this down, I decided I think I am going to trim that and have a little bit of a margin here on the bottom of this green. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down, since I told you, to 11. So so what that happens then is those numbers just come off, and look, you would never even know that those numbers were there before, or that they were supposed to be there before. So this one, because I wanted to have the top of this flower be the top of this piece, I trimmed this one to 4.5. Like I said, when I look at this sketch, it could be 4, it could be 4.5. Again, when I post these sketches, I will tell you the sizes that we use today when we do these. So this one is going to be 11 by 4.5, and you could do 4 or 4.5. Both of those are going to look just fine. Okay. The next piece, so we have just so far we have a 12 by 12 cardstock base. This piece right here is 11 by 4.5. And again, you could make it 4 tall or 4.5 tall. The next piece that we're going to add in on our sketch is kind of this background here. So they're showing on this, and what I love about these sketches is they kind of show you a cheater guide to how to combine patterns. And this is kind of that concept of, you want to have a larger pattern and then some sort of a dot or a stripe, maybe then a smaller pattern, then some sort of solids. But that's kind of the basics of how you, yes, Laura, I can change my mind. That's the wonderful part about all of this. You can change your mind. So I'm going to go ahead and, like we talked about here, these kind of give you a little cheat of how to use the sketches. You can go ahead and use a larger pattern back here. That's sort of what they're saying, or how they would do it. There's a dot here. This section here has kind of either like a grid, or this is almost kind of qualifies as a stripe, because they're showing a little bit of a stripe pattern, and this is a little bit more of a solid. So how we'll make that look. The next paper that I chose to use is actually this paper here. So this is the paper from the Hey Crafty Girl line called So Artsy. Beautiful floral pattern on one side, and then this kind of a check pattern on the backside in this beautiful, it's kind of a in between a coral and a blush. It's kind of a pinky peach. I really like it. It's really similar to this color that I think Basil uses called flamingo. So, which I know is my dear friend Lizzie's favorite bird. So, and I think I saw that she's on here. So, all right. So this paper right here, one of the ways that I like to do things is in divisions of 12. So when I'm designing layouts, a lot of times I'm thinking about, most of the time we print photos 4x6. And then it's very easy often with 4x6 photos to trim them down to a little bit less than 4x6 and possibly a little bit more like a 4x4 or a 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So I try to do things in, I would say, divisions of 4, so that in a 12 by 12 paper, we can get the most out of things. So I'm always thinking forward when I know I'm going to do a project that uses the paper in more than one layout and uses it in more than one way. So for this paper here, what I did is cut off that product strip, and then I cut this into 2 6 by 12 pieces. Okay, so I just cut it straight down the middle to 2 6 by 12 pieces, and then one of those 6 by 12 pieces I cut down to 6 by 8. And then what's great is we'll have a 4 by 6 left over. We can either use that as a mat later or a little accent here or there, but it gives us the possibility of later on using that paper again as a mat or something like that. And then we have the whole other half of the paper to be used while you're, when you're working on something else. So that was this paper. Again, we cut that into 2 6 by 12 sections and cut one of them down to 6 by 8. So we go back to our sketch here, and you'll see that they actually have a dot that they used for the next paper. Now, this is where you can choose to use either, it can be a large dot, it can be a small dot. With this line, there are a ton of different choices. And it could be a smaller floral that kind of qualifies almost like a dot. So you could use this because this kind of has a dotted pattern. There are dots in this collection. But what I opted to go with is one of the tone-on-tone papers from the Basics pack. So I cut another of these papers in a 6 by 8. And what we're doing is layering here. So again, my whole theory is thinking forward of using, because these are double-sided, we could possibly use that 4 by 6 pattern, 4 by 6 that's left over for another photo mat. So essentially what we did is the same cut that we just did a second ago. So that is cut your product strip off, cut this into 2 6 by 12 pieces, and then trim one to a 6 by 8. So we're just kind of building this layering that they have shown us on this sketch here. The next part is this piece here that's kind of almost like a grid or a you could be like a stripe or something like that, but it's meant to be, from what I look at this sketch, maybe a little bit more of a subtle pattern. So, and what I did is, again, I looked at the papers all in this layout, or excuse me, all in this collection. A lot of times, people will look at the card pieces from a collection. The 4 by 4, 4 by 6, and 3 by 4 cards that come with these collections. So here, for instance, is the 4 by 4 cards. Here is the sheet that has the 4 by 6 cards. And often when I look at these, I think, you know what, I would use probably 2 or 3 of those. So I'll sometimes pick out my ones that I love the most. So for me, when I look at this right away, I think to myself, well, I definitely want to use this one. I definitely want to use this one. I definitely want to use this one. This one is a maybe because you could always cut this out to make a title piece. You could create all kinds of different things on there separate from using it as a frame. But these two, for me, they aren't ones that jump out to me as something that I would use very frequently. So what I do often is look at these and say, okay, how could I, use these to do something different? So I'll pick these out and then I'll cut this paper. So for instance, on this one, I cut the product strip off. I cut down the middle here and said, okay, I'm going to set these pieces aside because I know I would like to use these cards. Okay. And then I looked at this one and I said, well, I definitely want to use this card. So I will cut that card off and set it aside for later. But these two, they just, for some reason for me, now if those excite you and you want to keep them or whatever yours are and you want to keep them, great. And sometimes you don't get that lucky that you find two in a row that, you know, you can get a block like this. And so sometimes you just kind of have to make choices as far as what you like the most or what one you might be willing to give up if you want to use this strategy that I'm going to tell you about. So another way to get the most out of these double-sided pattern papers when you love to use these cut apart cards is make the decision. Which of these do I want to use and which are maybe not my favorite? So in this case, I decided these two, just not my favorite. I love this line. I love the idea of making photos. And then again, if you want to use this and put some title work on it or that kind of a thing, great. Just not for me. So then I went ahead and cut the Hey Crafty Girl off and just took this and flipped it. Again, we're still with 6x8. So another 6x8 piece. And we're essentially just going to lay that one across here like we have on our sketch here. Now, truthfully, on the sketch, it's probably shorter than 8. But again, this is our layout and we get to do what we want. So we're going to just change it to 6x8. And I'll tell you in just a minute why I've made that choice. So I'm going to lay these out again really quick. And most of the time when I'm designing, I'm blocking. I'm just kind of setting things down. I'm seeing where they look good to me, seeing what I like, what I don't like, that kind of a thing. So I'm kind of just blocking this layout out right now. Setting things out, and this one actually I think I'm going to bring across farther here. And we're going to set this, you know, you could even drag it off to the edge there. You can make a further adjustment here if you want this to sit within there, however you like to do it. The next piece that we have to use for this layout, if I can find it, that is, now that I've created this big pile of things, is going to be this piece right here. So I showed you kind of what we did with the cards and cutting those apart a little bit differently. And now what we're going to do is look at the 3x4 cards. And we're essentially going to do the exact same thing with the 3x4 cards that we did with the 4x6 and the 4x4 cards. So here's that 3x4 sheet of cards. Or a sheet of 3x4 cards. I can't talk today. And I, again, kind of did the same thing. I was like, okay, I love a lot of these and I could see using a lot of these with, crafty layouts, that kind of a thing. And some of them have sayings, some of them are journaling, some of them are phrases. That's great. But for me, when I look at these two, I mean, I love the planner part. So if you're a planner, you could switch to something else, that kind of a thing. But this is probably a section that are two cards that I wouldn't use. So again, all we have done is so far is, divisions of 3 and 4. So basically 3, 4, 6, and 12. So they all work out together. We're going to cut that product strip off. You can cut either here, you can cut here, however you want to do it. But I isolated these two cards right here as something that I don't think that I would use the 3x4 cards. And I love this cute little floral pattern on the back here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just kind of tuck this behind here. Now, if you look at our sketch, it is actually a full piece that goes all the way down. But I didn't want to cover up our super cute flower that we have here. So I decided to make this little floral piece just kind of hang out behind this yellow piece here and be just a fun little accent on the left side of that page here. So we've got, so far then, we've kind of gotten these three pieces. We've got our base, and then we've got our basically mat for our photos here. So the next thing to do is to kind of look at some of these accent parts and pieces here. So I also have in this line the 2x2 cards. And this one has a lot of really cute options. So on the back of this dot piece here, this is a large kind of a geometric dot. And then on the other side, it's these really cute cut apart 2x2 cards. The other one is this adorable one that is a yellow floral on one side, and then it has really fun phrases on the other side. And then in addition to that, we still have the super fun, if I can locate it here, 2x2 cards that we know and love from Simple Stories that have all kinds of different phrases and images and that kind of a thing. So I just went through, and again, one of my strategies when I'm designing multiple pages is to kind of look down a line and say, I really like all of the phrases that are here, or most of the phrases here. So, and maybe I like these over here, or that kind of a thing. So I'll cut, say, one side and the other side and know that I'm going to use those phrases, but then I still have that pattern on the other side to use if I want it when we're using these double-sided papers. I made the decision with this paper that I like these phrases a lot. I mean, and you can pick whichever ones you like, but I just chose today to go ahead and cut these. So we're going to cut this strip off. So we just did cut the product strip off. I believe this is a 2-inch. Yeah, this is 2 inches in. So I just cut a 2-inch strip off of the side. And then I set the yellow up, aside after that. I cut out this one that that I decided I wanted to use, which is crafting keeps me sane mostly, which is true for most people that I know, including myself. And many people will question that throughout the crafting process, and that's okay because we keep each other sane. Then in this next one, I decided to look at a couple of rows that I liked off of the 2x2 cards. So I looked at these and I thought, I love all of the little phrases and that kind of a thing, but I really like the images and a lot of the sayings down here. So I went ahead and cut 4 inches off the bottom. So this 4x12 strip, which still leaves us with this, this strip on the other side. Actually, I lied to you. I did not cut all of that. I cut just to here. I did 4x6. So I did cut this part out here. And the reason is we're going to use this stripe and we want it vertical for a different layout. So I cut the vertical out of one side of it and cut these out of the other. So don't let me lie to you. I only cut here out. Okay. And then I left that vertical stripe on the other half. So, and you can do that one of two ways. You can do that. I did it with a scissor and then cut those out, or you can just use your trimmer and cut to this spot here and then down from this spot. Or you could just cut this whole paper in half, set aside the stripe part, and then know that, okay, this is the half that I have to work with for other things. So you can do that any of those ways. So I went ahead and decided to use the little rolls of washi and that little tape gun that we all use so often as my little 2x2 cards for this sketch right here. Now, I like to have more than one photo per layout. This one right here has, you can do the small photos if you don't want to use these fun little accents. You can do a 4x4 photo and a 2x3 photo. You can do, whichever ones that you like to do. As far as the sizes and how many photos that you want to have. So on this one, because we made this a 6x8 block, it would be perfectly set up to do a 4x6 photo here instead of a 4x4 because you have more space on this sketch. So that's what I'm going to do. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just put a white mat there. So the way I'm going to do that is just to remind myself that there's going to be a photo there. I'm going to put a white cardstock mat there. Now, some people, and the other thing about that is some people don't like to mat every single one of their photos. Sometimes when they put photos on a layout, they only put the photo, they don't mat everything. Or in this case, you could say, well, this is a 6x8 mat here. So theoretically, if I have two 4x6 photos that are cut down just a little bit, if they're trimmed just a little bit, then you could fit them vertically here, both of them in this 6x8 mat here. So you could trim 2 4x6 photos down. I'm going to go ahead and turn this horizontally and have this as a designated space for this 4x6 photo to go here. And then I'm going to make a decision. Oh, there's the welcoming committee for somebody just pulled up in front of our house. I think at the neighbors, and my welcoming committee is letting them know that she has noticed their presence. So the next thing that we're going to do is add in some more of the patterned, the dot pattern paper here. So what I'm going to do is just cut out, again, this is that really pretty blush kind of a thing. We're going to cut out the 2x3 and we're going to use that for a mat right over here. So we're going to just cut another strip of this off of this is the Hey Crafty Girl, they call it salmon and sky dot paper. So this is from that background paper. So the great part about these is that in those solids and basics papers, you get 2 sheets of each of these. So you have a lot to work with. So you get 2 sheets of each of the colors, and they're double-sided, so they have one color on one side and one color on the other. But you get to use both of those. So so that means that you have a lot to work with, which is the great part. Okay, so we've got that, and then we've got our title. And I'm just looking right now because I have my girls from Crafty Girls has gone missing. It has decided to walk away. There it is. So I've got to locate it here. So I've decided this is off of the chipboard here, that my title on the bottom is going to be off of this chipboard here. This one just kind of fell out. So I'm going to start off with this one. And the bottom of my layout here is going to just say Crafty Girls Rock. Now, if you have a group of people that's both men and women that craft together and you don't want to say Crafty Girls, well then, you know, change that around. In this, in the bits and pieces, there are tons of words. So you could do, say, you know, memories made with love, you know, that kind of a thing. You could use many of the different words that are in here. There's in this chipboard, there's create. And again, I will use these later on as we get farther along. However, you can make the choice of what ones you want to do wherever you want to do them. Okay. So this is the basic framework of how this one's going to look. So the next thing that we're going to do is add in a little bit of embellishment. So I like to do things like twine. You could do ribbon if you want to, that kind of a thing. And then we're also going to add in some of the stickers from the sticker sheet and add things onto it. So that's kind of the basic framework for the process here. I'm going to stop right here with this one because we've got this one laid out how we want. What we're going to do, what I'll do next is go ahead and chalk the edges of this because I like to have my edges chalked. And then in addition to that, add in some of the stickers and the other embellishments, and I'll add in some of the twine and that kind of a thing. And when it's all finished, so you get the basic framework of how to use this sketch that we have and create this layout, okay? But what I'll do is I'll finish this one out, and then I will show you how to do the 2-page layout. Then what I'll do is post to our posting here, to the, I'll post later to this, the finished product, and I'll post them on our Facebook and our Instagram so that you can see, once we add just a little bit more embellishment, how they really come to life. But in the interest of time, what we'll do is go ahead and say this framework with this sketch is all set up and ready to go. And then you can add on all kinds of embellishments that you want. So moving on to the 2-page layout, we're going to use this sketch that's super cute from the folks over at Dusty Attic as well. This one was week 1, and it's a 2-page layout. And so what's great about these sketches is that you can So Tracy had a question about the series. The series of sketches, or are you talking about the patterned paper that I use? So the series of sketches is Dusty Attic. It's called A Year of Sketches. You can find them on the Dusty Attic Facebook page. They post their sketches each week, and then they have their designers design amazing examples using those sketches. So you can find all kinds of inspiration there. The paper line is called Hey Crafty Girl, and that is a Simple Stories line, and I will have bundles of that available at the end. I'm going to post those on the Facebook page. I'm sorry, on my website for sale. So if you would like to follow along and do what we're doing with the Hey Crafty Girl, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use this 2-page sketch. Now, one of the reasons that I love this 2-page sketch is that you have all kinds of opportunity with this one. It's a pretty simple sketch to accomplish, meaning it doesn't involve a ton of different pattern papers. It has lots of different sizes, and it has a lot of photos on it, but you can add fun little embellishments here and there. You can change it around to make it work for you. Now, in the interest of trying to preserve your papers, one of the things that I will sometimes do is called is just preserve my papers by using up papers that you get from something else. So for instance, when you buy a pack of like page protectors, they'll have a piece of little, like a lot of times in the page protector, the first one, they'll have like a blank piece of just plain chipboard. Or you can get a bulk pack of just, maybe thinner chipboard at something like a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby or that kind of a thing that isn't as expensive as the pattern paper and that kind of a thing. But what it does is it creates a base for you. And so these 2 pieces of paper I have right now are actually, I collected them years ago out of the insides of albums. So the trick with them is sometimes they're not fully 12 by 12. But if you just go ahead and say, I'm always going to use the top corners, the top 2 corners as my register for, where the 12 will be, then your layouts will always line up. And so I'll show you what that means here in just a minute. But the reason that I did it this way is because when you have a pack of pattern paper and they have 1 sheet each of these papers, or in the case of the solids paper, has 2 sheets, even though they're double-sided with 2 different colors, sometimes you have to do things to preserve that paper if you don't want to buy a second piece of paper. Now, if you want to get a second piece of paper, that makes things easy. But if you want to just use a collection pack and get the most out of it, sometimes it's great to use these just little, basic, and this is not textured, it's just a pretty simple, it's actually off-white, thinner cardstock as my base. And I'm just going to build on top of it, and it's all going to get covered, so you're not going to see it anyway. So the first thing that we did is pick out a pattern paper for this centerpiece here. And so again, kind of a larger pattern based on what they're instructing us on these amazing sketches, or what they're suggesting. And it just works out well. They end up looking beautiful. So I went ahead and used the floral piece, this white with multicolored floral, and there's more than one floral in this line, so it's the larger floral piece. This is what it looks like. And then it has kind of this book print on the back. It looks like it's a section out of a book, a textbook or something like that. It's a beautiful color, and I love book print for all kinds of things. But I decided that we'll use this one for our centerpiece here that we're going to cut. So this one, I went ahead and cut off the product strip, and then I cut this one to, if I'm not mistaken, yes, I cut this one to 12 inches tall. I basically cut a 2-inch strip off of the left side. So thanks, Laura. I know I love that floral too. I cut 2 inches off of the left-hand side, so it's going to end up being a 10-inch by 12-inch tall piece. Okay, and then I went ahead and cut this, I believe at 3.5. Yep, so I cut it at 3.5 So you that 10 inch by 12 inch piece, I cut it at 3.5 right here. And then I cut it at so that will make it, gosh, how come I can't think today? 3.5 and 6.5. My math skills have lost me. So when we lay out our base pages, so you can kind of just start blocking this out. When we lay out our base pages, again, I'm going to use that top corner because these aren't true 12 by 12. I'm using that top corner and I am lining them up here. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Top corner and line those up. So they will kind of run across the 2 pages for you. Okay. The next part we use is the stripe. And this is that 2 by 2 card again. Remember we talked about how we only were going to cut off this. We were going to cut off this section here and leave it for your stripe. So this is that piece that we preserved before off of that 2 by 2 card strip. And that is the stripe. So I cut these are 2 pieces that are 3/4 inch a piece. So we've got a 3/4 on that stripe piece on both sides. All right. And we're already, more than halfway there. Then we went ahead and pulled out this piece of the, that second piece that we have of that, salmon, they call it, salmon dot. So I'm going to double check here where I cut it at because I'm trying to remember. So it is a 12 inch piece and it was cut at 7.5. And then, so that makes this one 4.5. So 7.5 and 4.5. So we're going to set that 4.5 right over here, and it's basically going to kind of butt up against that. And then we're going to put the 7.5 over on this side. Now don't panic. At this point you're going to say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't match up. There is a little bit of a gap here. And this is where I looked at, because I only wanted to use one of these pieces, I went ahead and looked at my stickers. So what my plan is then to add this super cute scallop edge wood sticker, and I will have that butt right up against this side of the stripe, and it will go the full 12 inch length, and it will take up that gap, that little kind of 1/4 inch gap that's between those 2 strips right there, and you'll never even know that it was there. All right, then I went back to my 4x6 cards. If we refer back to this sketch that we have 2 horizontal 4x6s, a vertical 4x6, and they suggested horizontal 4x3s, 3 of those, and a vertical 3x4. So I went ahead and looked at this and said, I think I'm going to block that out just a little bit differently. And again, you can use these sketches however you want. But so far, we have now got our floral, our stripe, and then our dots on the side there. Okay, I went ahead and chose that piece that we had that was left over, that we used that 2x3 card from on the other piece of the salmon. Okay. So you used a 2x3 piece, and now you're going to go ahead and cut another section of 2 4x6 pieces. Okay, so we've got 2 4x6s right here and right here. And then you're going to cut another set, so you're going to go 4 and then another 4, and that will get you to the additional 4x6s, so 2 additional 4x6s. So we've got these 4x6s there. And we still will have a little bit of this paper left over, and we've used it on a couple of layouts now. I chose a couple of other cards that I wanted to use. Now I decided that I wanted this bottom to be a 4x6 layout or 4x6 picture, just because I know that I'm going to be more likely to use a 4x6 there. I looked at the 4x4 cards that I had if I can find those again, I've buried them multiple times, the 4x4 cards, and decided that I really like this 4x4 card. So I also really like this pattern. So again, what I did is cut off this top product strip here. I cut off just this first set of 3 4-inch by 4-inch cards, and I cut out the Craftiness is Happiness card, and I set that one right over on the side here. In addition to that, I looked over at when we talked about those 4x6 cards. We cut those apart earlier. And if you remember, we had the conversation where we decided I decided I was going to use this block for a photo mat on our single page layout. And I liked this one and I liked all of these. So then what I did is we had cut this one off and we cut this and set it aside. I took this one, cut out this 4x6 card, and decided I wanted to use that on this one. I love that it has that salmon color in it for the creativity word, and I really like how I like the phrase. So I took that one and I just trimmed 1/8 of it. I cut it out, the 4x6 card, so I just trimmed that off of there, and I trimmed 1/8 of an inch off of each edge. So that's just putting it into your paper trimmer, doing 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, so that basically this will end up 5 3/4 by 3 3/4, and then I put it on one of these kind of robin's egg dot mats so that it doesn't get lost in that white floral behind there. So put that, and I'm going to mat that on there. So we've got Craftiness is Happiness. We're going to refer back to our sketch really quick here. Craftiness is Happiness. We've got our 4x6 photo mats. We used one of the 4x6 cards over here. And then I decided that I really wanted to use this one off of the 3x4 cards. So this is that 3x4 cards that we looked at before, where I made the decision that I didn't really feel like I would use these two. And we used those on the other layout, but I knew that I especially really liked all of them on the top here, and I liked these two. So now what I decided to do was go ahead and cut this one out of this sheet and use it on this layout. So I am going to actually set that one. And again, we're changing things vertical versus horizontal, and it's still going to be just fine. This is your layout. Nobody has to know what that sketch originally looked like. So we've got this super cute card over here. And you know, where it shows this 3x4 over here, we have that 4x6. So I'm not really going to worry too much about having another photo over here. We have changed this layout, and I will 100% own this. We've changed this layout from essentially you being able to get 7 photos onto a layout to more like 3 photos onto a layout, and then also you know, have a couple cards here. In that leftovers from that salmon and robin's egg, you do have enough if you want to put another 3x4 photo mat here. And mine is here, so I'll do that just so that we can see what that would look like. So if you want to add another photo there, that would be another way to do it as well, to give you a little bit more ability to have a few more photos there. Or if you wanted to, you could do 2 4x4 photos down here. You could change this to 2 4x4s. It just is however you like to have things look. So we'll just set this here for now. I went through all of my different, we're going to go back to the sketch here. I went through the different cardstock die cut pieces, the die cuts and the journaling cards, or the journaling bits and pieces, and kind of looked through several of those and decided that I wanted the title, I'm So Crafty. So I'm going to go ahead and put this I'm So Crafty here. And one of the tricks with this one to make it appear more lifelike is we'll use foam squares for that one. But the I'm So Crafty is going to live up there. And then we're going to go through and add in some other embellishments, and we'll add in all kinds of other different stickers and that kind of a thing. Again, This one went a little bit faster, mainly because we already had a sketch that was pretty simple to follow. It didn't have a ton of pieces. It doesn't have a lot of cuts. For you, it might take a lot longer because I've already obviously pre-looked at all of these patterns and chosen the ones that I like to go together. So if that doesn't mean, or if the, if this is going to take you longer I spend a lot of time flipping through pattern papers and saying, I think this one with this one. Oh wait, what about this one with this one? How about this combination with this combination? That kind of a thing. So it may take you quite a while to decide what your favorite combination is, and that's okay. So this went very fast for me because I already had it done. But it's going to take you a little bit longer, but you'll get this basic block down. And then from here on out, you can decide your configuration of photos. These can be changed around. These can be made into entirely different, vertical versus horizontal, that kind of a thing. Again, the thing I want to impose upon everyone, or just kind of make everybody understand, is that a sketch is a sketch. Your final product can look however you want it to look and can use the photos in the orientation that you have them. A lot of times I see people look at sketches and go, well, I don't think that's going to work for me because all the photos that I have are verticals, or all the photos that I have are horizontals. And I always say to them, so change it around. It's your sketch. It's your basic framework that's going to go from, like we said, framework to fabulous. And how you finish it is 100% based on your preferences and also based on what photos that you have. So this one, like I said, because it's a little bit of a more simple sketch, comes together really quick with all of the pattern papers and the cards that we laid out here. I, again, am an inker. So what I'll do as I finish this is ink these edges, stick everything down, and we'll add some more of the chipboard and the stickers and that kind of a thing. And then post this final for you so that you can see what it looks like as a finished product. And then see kind of how those really come to life by just adding a few of those extra touches. However, I promised myself that I wouldn't talk for forever and ever, and I would try to keep you guys to about an hour because I know it's hard when you have lots of other things going on in life, but if you can get an hour of crafty time away, that's a fabulous thing, and I think it's great for everybody for their mental health and for getting that creativity expressed, and it's definitely a wonderful thing to be able to get our minds, at least for an hour in a day, off of all the other crazy things that are going on in the world right now. So I hope you love these basic frameworks. Again, I will go ahead and post for you this sketch with the dimensions of what we cut on it, a sketch for the one-page layout with the dimensions of what we cut. In addition to that, I will post photos of the finished layouts once I get them all put together and additional fun stuff added on, and I can post a little bit of a description of the extra things that I did with them. So I hope that you guys have all enjoyed this first section of this. Again, I will be working hard to get the YouTube version of this working. That way we can have anybody who wants to participate, even if you're not on Facebook, take part. And then in addition to that, we'll be doing a further part of this class where we'll be doing the next session will be 2 more 2-page layouts. And then the final one will be another 1-page layout and another 2-page layout. So you can get a whole bunch done with these, these basic, I shouldn't say these basic, this set of one collection pack of 12 papers, a sticker sheet, and some basic papers along with embellishments. And you'll be able to see just the large amount of pages you can get done with that. For inking the edges, Marilyn, good question. We sell these inks on my website. They're called, they're made by the folks at Quick Quotes. They're powder puff inks. They are chalk-based ink, so they aren't too wet. A lot of people's complaint about inking in general is that they're too wet, for the best way to say it, and they rub off on things and it takes forever to dry, that kind of a thing. These ones go on really dry. They're also true color, meaning that if you have a white piece of cardstock and you put them on, you're going to see the true color, or you're going to see it on, even if I were to put this on the edge of a black piece of cardstock, you could still see the edge of it. It's also if you want to use it to ink chipboard, and I'm going to do my best to add some Dusty Attic chipboard pieces in as we get later on, so that you can see that you can ink with chalk ink on these raw chipboard Dusty Attic pieces, and then they stay a wonderful, beautiful tone. So that would be, those are our choice. These also hold up. We had some inkers that as we edged with them and as we used them a lot, they started to shred. These have held their ink and held together very well up to all of that stress. So the one thing that I would tell people that I always recommend when it comes to inking, if you're a person who likes to ink edges, and I'll just show this technique really quick before we go, because I think it's another important thing to note. This is a brand new inker. So this one, it comes out brand new like this. It's pretty ergonomic in how you hold it. And then I think one of the best tips that I've ever had is don't put the paper when you're inking down it straight like this, like that's gonna cut into your ink pad. The better technique to use is to lay it on top and just kind of rub across the top of that edge, and ink more on the top edge of the paper so that you don't end up cutting into your pad. But you can see how these are, it's not real, I don't know if you can see that really well, but it's not real wet. It's not too gooey to where if you set it down, it's going to get all over something, and they dry really quickly. So, and you can just see, brand new one here, and it does great color on these edges. And then you can also use it for, like I said, inking raw chipboard, that kind of a thing. So, and then you can see how much that really makes things pop. So these are the Quick Quotes inks. All of them are listed on our website in many, many different colors. So you can find those. So if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to post on this, I will post this video to our Facebook page when we're finished here. And if you watch it later and you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out to me, make a comment, and then I would be happy to respond to you. So looking forward to our next session. I'm going to just double check and make sure that everything is working with the YouTube, and then I will post when our next one will be. I'm planning on having it midweek during the week this week, so that we can kind of get some people who are available on the weekend and then during the week, and then we'll finish up at the end of the week. So hopefully if you're able to follow along with all 3 videos by the end of this week, you'll have almost a full I don't want to say album's worth, or a full event worth. If you're doing a family vacation, if you're doing a trip, that kind of a thing, you'll have plenty of pages to put all your photos down as you work through, as we use this time to work through some of those photos that we've had laying around for a while and everything else. So thanks so much for participating with me today. I look forward to talking with everybody soon, and hopefully we'll be able to see you guys in person in NoCo Crop Stop in the near future. Take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend.